Ray Martin, well, he was a genial presence on our TV screens for decades, but like so many Yes advocates, he certainly turned nasty this week. Now, it was bad enough that he called no voters dinosaurs or dickheads at an event with the Prime Minister, but last night he doubled down on it, falsely claiming that he hadn't been abusive to no voters. He then claimed he was in fact attacking the argument, you know, if you don't know, vote no, rather than the people making it. Now, I don't believe that. Here's the footage again from the original Sydney rally that he hosted in the presence of the Prime Minister in Marrickville.
If you don't know, find out what you don't know. What that asinine slogan is saying is if you're a dinosaur, a dickhead, who can't be bothered reading, then vote no.
All right, you be the judge. Now here is his comments from last night.
Ray, do you regret those comments now?
No, I don't. Ali, I think this is a really important referendum. And I would never call no voters dinosaurs. What I said was that what I found offensive is this slogan, this stupid slogan, if you don't know, vote no.
I'm not referring to whether or not the language was savoury.
I hear it all the time on
It was
radio.
whether or not you think it's disrespectful. Because it sounded disrespectful.
I'll tell you what's disrespectful. Voting and admitting your ignorance and going ahead and voting on such an important issue as this.
This is also typical, isn't it, of the Yes campaign? Belittle and abuse the other side and then deny you've even done it. It's the classic case we saw with Marsha Langton, who called no voters racist, then denied she'd ever done that, saying it was their arguments she was calling racist, only for footage to then emerge of her saying that, well, no voters, yes, she says, they were spewing racism.
Ordinary Australians are thinking, yes, of course I'm voting for the Voice, and that would be, you know, say 48, 49%. Then there's the hard no voters, and I'm hoping that they're about 20%, and they're the ones who are spewing the racism.
Now, it's a pretty thin distinction between calling an argument racist and calling the person making it a racist. Telling people that their arguments are racist when they're arguing against putting race-based distinctions into our Constitution, well, that's an insult designed to intimidate people into silence and acquiescence. And shame on Ray Martin for delivering such a cheap shot in the first place, but shame on him again for trying to justify himself instead of offering up the apology that any decent person would have made. But it wasn't just the abusive comments that were the problem. It was also his claim at Marrickville that the detail is irrelevant, as if anyone buying a car or a house without the detail would go through with the sale, as if people should ever be asked to do anything akin to signing a blank cheque on our Constitution. How can we be expected to endorse a change to our Constitution when its advocates have deliberately not said exactly what that change would mean, and then deny it means exactly what they've previously admitted? And the worst offender here has clearly been the Prime Minister himself, who said no fewer than 34 times he's committed to the Uluru Statement he says in full. Now, we know now what that in full means: voice, treaty and truth. And yet he insists that treaty has nothing to do with the Voice or the Uluru Statement. Here he is on Radio National just a couple of weeks ago, and listen carefully because the host, Patricia Karvelis, has to go back to him 3 times to push him on whether his government, the federal government, is prepared to negotiate treaties between the Commonwealth and so-called First Nations. And Albanese does everything he can here to dodge giving a straight answer.
You support a treaty?
I look forward to, well, the processes are occurring.
But federally, you've committed to the Uluru Statement.
No, yeah, and it's not a treaty.
There's perhaps potentially many treaties, right?
Yeah, that's occurring. It's like saying, do you support the sun coming up? It's occurring.
Oh, sure, but Prime Minister, I don't mean to be rude, but I will say, I mean, the Uluru Statement, you rightly pointed out very clearly that there are 3 parts of it, and right now you're focused on the Voice. But in this term of Parliament, if the Voice passes, Will you move to trying to negotiate a treaty or treaties?
No, Patricia, because that's occurring with the states are occurring.
So you're saying the Commonwealth will never have a role with treaties?
Right now. No, Patricia, what I'm saying is that what the No campaign want to do is to focus on everything that's not happening and nothing that is.
There is only one question. You're absolutely right for a referendum, but I suppose the questions around the government's broader commitments to the other elements, including the Makarrata Commission, which you have funded actually in your budget, do matter, even if they may be a strategy of the No campaign. Your government's commitment to those other elements is important. Are you still committed to Commonwealth's negotiating treaties?
Patricia, well, where does it say that? It doesn't even say that in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. It doesn't say that. It doesn't speak about the Commonwealth negotiating treaties. It doesn't say that, Patricia. So don't get sucked into...
I'm not sucked into anything. I just want to know what your position is.
Now, Carvelis is no slouch. I'm not getting suckered into anything, she said. But then she pushes the Prime Minister hard again.
What our position is that there will be a referendum in the last quarter of this year about recognition, about listening, and in order to get better outcomes for Indigenous Australians. That's what people will be voting for.
Just to get some clarity,
recognition.
You don't think the Commonwealth has a role to negotiate treaties?
No, I didn't say that. I said that's not in the Uluru Statement from the Heart.
Okay, so do you think the Commonwealth has a role on negotiating treaties?
Patricia, what the Commonwealth has a role in is the referendum that will put to the Australian people in the last quarter of this year. That is what is happening. We've come a long way from 1986, which was prior to the Mabo decision, prior to native title. And what we're seeing is a rerun, though, of some of the negative campaigning that occurred at that time. And I think that's a great pity.
Are you still committed to the Commonwealth negotiating treaties, she asked him. And he then fudges with an answer about going back to his lines about the states. But then that extraordinary response on treaties where the Prime Minister says it doesn't even say that in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. It doesn't speak about the Commonwealth negotiating treaties.
Talk about lots of things, there's no doubt about it. But just to get some clarity,
recognition.
You don't think the Commonwealth has a role to negotiate treaties?
No, I didn't say that. I said that's not in the Uluru Statement from the Heart.
But hang on. The full Uluru Statement the Prime Minister says he hasn't even read says that Makarrata or treaty making, quote, is the culmination of our agenda. It's also there in the diagrams at the back. And the Prime Minister's own website, his website still says, or at least it did last night, that a Makarrata Commission or a treaty commission is a priority for the Albanese government, not the states, the Albanese government. Indeed, Carvelis backs me up there. His own government has already put $6 million in the budget to set it up. Now, this commitment, the PM's own website says, and I quote, sits alongside Labor's commitment to a referendum on a constitutionally enshrined voice. His own website says that the job of the Makarrata Commission is, quote, to oversee processes for treaty making and truth-telling. Now, how can the PM deny that he wants a treaty between the Commonwealth and Aboriginal people, or treaties, when his own website says that's exactly what he and his Labor government wants? He says he hasn't read the Uluru Statement. Why would he?
You agree with most of what is said in those 25 pages?
I haven't read it.
You haven't read it?
There's 120 pages. Why would I? I know what the conclusion is.
We know time and time again he couldn't even answer basic questions in last year's election.
Do you know the official cash rate off the top of your head?
Oh, look, we can do the old Q&A stuff over 50 different over 50 different figures. It's up to people to ask whatever questions they want. Andrew,
what's the national unemployment rate?
National unemployment rate at the moment is I think it's 5.4. Sorry, I'm not sure what it is.
All right, add it all up, and there's a real pattern of underperformance here, of a bloke that's sort of hail fellow well met, everyone's mate, but is simply not doing the work that the job of Prime Minister demands, or not up to it, some of his insiders might say. But worse than that, there's now this growing realisation out of this Voice campaign, from his own obfuscations and denials of what plainly is there on the record, of what's in the documents, what's on his own website, or indeed what's on the public record over many years, from statements and speeches of activists in the past, that the Prime Minister is more than happy to play with the truth. Play with the truth. And that's the real worry.